think he's there.
Okay. And we can call him in like after we get rolled. Can you hear me?
Yeah, he's there. He's there. Let me
All right.
take this online thing. Okay, I think we are live streaming now on the Facebook. So I request Amritpal ma'am to please begin the session today.
Okay. Jai Bhim, and a very warm good evening to all of you. On behalf of the Indian Ambedkarite Doctors Federation and Ambedkar Karma, I welcome you all to an exclusive series of weekly conversations on race and caste. We will be hosting this series over a period of this series will cover 5 topics in the coming weeks. As we all know that racial discrimination and caste prejudice, they are 2 well-established social discriminatory institutions of the world, caste system being the oldest. Whereas racial discrimination involves favoritism on the basis of racial features, like the color of the skin. Caste goes a step further by in dividing people of the same race into watertight compartments. Now, having said that, both the oppressive systems, they perpetuate oppression by favoring the oppressors, that is the whites and the upper castes, in all spheres, like political, social, economical, cultural, legal, and religious. Today, the racial justice movement has become a global phenomenon, especially after the killing of George Floyd by the white supremacist. Likewise, many social reconstructive movements, they are emerging in various parts of our country, India, demanding a new society free from caste discrimination and based on universal principles of equality, fraternity, and liberty as a social reality. As the demand for social justice is becoming global, interactions between race and caste also become obligatory. This series is an attempt to take this conversation ahead. I am Dr. Amritpal Kaur, an orodental surgeon. I'm your host for today's live series. Today, I welcome Sir Paul Guthrie from USA, who is an historical researcher and is the founder of the World Dhamma Foundation, and Sir Rock Mohammed, also from USA. Shri Mangesh Dahiwale, a writer from India who writes regularly on the caste issues and philosophy of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. I welcome you all, and I hand it over to Mangesh to begin the series.
Thank you, Amritpal, for having kick-started this very important conversation between the 2 communities in India and our brothers and sisters in USA. Welcome, Brother Paul. Very lovely to see you. You know, we have a long friendship from last 10 years, and we have been interacting all the time. Our friendship goes back when the Yahoo groups were so prominent, and we used to communicate then about what's happening in our communities. And it was a delight to meet you 10 years back in LA and had this beautiful conversation on how we can help our communities forward. And I value your great life in the service of our people, both in India as well as in United States. So very happy to see you. Brother Rock Muhammad, so lovely to see you. I think this is for the first time we are meeting, but Brother Paul has put a very beautiful and very lovely word about you. So welcome today in these very important conversations that we are having on the community basis. I think today we are going to talk one of the prominent features of the race and caste, that is about the colonizing effect of both whites and here in India, the Brahmins had on the communities which are perpetuating for such a long period of time. And as we begin this conversation, I would like to really begin with where the conversation can begin, and that's in Africa. Okay. So we know that there was a movement in South Africa in 2016 where the campaign was to take down the statues of Rhodes, which was erected in the Cape Town, in in South Africa. And following that campaign, which was named as Roads Must Fall, another campaign was begun by a very individual who migrated from USA and settled in Ghana. And he started, his name is Dr. Odadel Kambon, and he started a very remarkable movement called Gandhi Must Fall. And there was in 2006, the president of India, Pranab Mukherjee, to inaugurate the statue of Gandhi in the University of Ghana. And when Professor Odadel Kambon saw it, he was actually a student of philosophy and literature, and he couldn't tolerate it that the statue of Gandhi was erected in Ghana, and then he wrote an appeal to the university graduates and the governments and so on and so forth, and the statue was ultimately brought down. Now we know that this Black Lives Movement has gone so forth that the statues of the colonialists and those who really oppressed the communities, those who slaved, and those who were slavers has been brought down throughout the world, including in Belgium, the statue of Leopold was brought down. So I think, to offer the comment on this colonialization and its linkages with India, I thought that I will bring some facts to the light today. One of the facts that has come up in the campaign that Dr. Odadel Kambon has launched against Gandhi statue was this, that he found Gandhi as pro-Indo-Aryan and anti-black. That is the title of the paper that he eventually wrote in terms of the campaign. So his title is very important, and that I think should set forth the discussion today. The pro-Indo-Aryan anti-black. And then when Gandhi was in South Africa, he was speaking against the blacks there. He in fact supported the war efforts of the white colonizers, even to the extent of saying that we Aryans are the same. He addressed the whites in Africa as the fellow Aryans, and which is very remarkable that this Indian upper caste were trying to take this identity of Aryans. Now much can be said about this theory called Aryan Invasion theory and Aryan racial theory, and we know that the roots of it goes in the language. When particularly William Jones was studying Sanskrit in the 18th century, he found that it's a remarkable language which has got affinity with Latin and Greece, and that's how the idea of the Indo-Aryan language came. And with that idea of Indo-Aryan language came the idea of the Aryan as a race. And when India was colonialized, and when this theory was in currency, most of the 99%, I would say 100% of the adherents and the propagators of this theory were the Brahmins, and that too from the city where I live. I live in the city called Pune, and that's where the Sanskrit education, Sanskrit institution took place, and they gave the wholehearted support to this Aryan invasion, to the extent claiming that the Brahmins in India are the brothers and sisters of the white colonizers. And in Maharashtra, they said that the Shudras, they didn't believe in the two Varnas, the Kshatriyas and the Vaishyas. They said that there are only two Varnas. One is the Brahmin and another is Shudras. And the Aryans, the Brahmins are by default Aryans and by default are non-Aryans. So this theory was so much supported by them that if you look at the historical figure from Bhandarkar to Kunte to Tilak and all the way up to Gandhi, they afford these views that they are, the Aryans who had this affinity with the Western Aryans. So I think with these beginning remarks, I would begin this conversation, because I think this theory of Aryan invasion and approaches to that constantly change in India. Today, the Brahmins in India claim that we are indigenous, and they are putting up a lot of efforts to claim that they are born and brought up in this country. So looking back at America, particularly when the whites started migrating to the American continent, how they dealt with the Native Americans is a story that the world needs to know, as to how they colonialized the great expanse of the American continent, destroying thousands of Native American nations and so on and so forth. Perhaps the same thing happened in this country, and we are going to talk about it. But I think with the beginning of this conversation, I would like to put this introduction in front and wait for you guys to comment on what I just said. Brother Paul.
Yes, the Aryan speaking people, Indo-Aryan speaking people, moved into India in 2000 BC, roughly. So they're not indigenous prior to that time. There were people already living there, and they discovered when they moved into that area, the Indo-Aryan speaking people, they discovered a civilization that's called the Indus Valley civilization. Two major cities, Mohenjo-daro and Harappa. But there were hundreds of smaller cities or townships. And this was found by the Indo-Aryan people when they moved in. The story of them moving in is codified in a book called the Rig Vedas. And the Rig Vedas talk about what you were speaking of, Mangesh, the destruction of the indigenous peoples and their civilizations. In the Rig Vedas, they talk about the Indo-Aryan speaking people were blonde-haired and white-skinned, according to the Rig Vedas. And the people who they found living in India, the indigenous builders of the oldest civilization, or the root of civilization in Asia, are described as Black people. Or in the Rig Vedas, I think they use the word Krishna, which is a Sanskrit word that's translated as black. The Rig Vedas say that they were skinning the black skin off of, or the Krishna skin or the black skin off of the indigenous population in India. So it's interesting that if someone's claiming that they are indigenous, their own books say that they came in and found cities there and attacked the indigenous people. But it's not just in India. It happened in Egypt with the Hyksos, the Hittites, and the Sea people. It happened in Crete. It happened in Sumer. It happened in the United States, where I'm from right now. In America, there were people living here when the Indo-European speaking people migrated into this land. If given time, if given 4,000 years of time, someone might be able to come up with a theory that the British were indigenous to this country. They may be able to do that, and people can be debating it. However, we know that there has been a migration of Indo-European speaking peoples, not just in India, but around the world. So, and the nature of their moving into, of that group of the Indo-Aryan speaking people and the Indo-European speaking people, the nature of their entrance into the countries that they moved into, or those areas that they moved into, was very violent. That's from 2000 BC until the present time, and it's marked by violence. If the Indo-Aryan speaking people built those old civilizations, those ancient civilizations, they didn't seem to build anything after they moved into India. They didn't rebuild the Indus Valley civilizations. So I think it's pretty clear historically. And I do want to mention that you talk about the phrase that they're using that's very popular, the Aryan Invasion theory. They call it a theory. The fact of the matter is everything in history is a theory. So we can talk about the British invasion theory into this country. It is a historical theory. Science is based on theories. There's a lot of theories, and those theories are supported by evidence. If the evidence supports a theory, then it's accepted as being historically valid. And the evidence does support that the Aryans are not indigenous to India, nor to Egypt, the Aryan Indo-European peoples, nor to this country, Americas. There was a migration that took place. To deny that, to me, is the same as denying the Aryan Holocaust that occurred in Germany. Adolf Hitler was a fan of the Aryan ideology of separation of the people, what you call the Varnas, the colors. They set up a system that was based on color, on skin color, and you can correct me on this, but it's based on the idea of Varna, and initially in the Rig Vedas, the Varna was the people who they found there, the indigenous people who were not Aryans.
I think you have touched on a very interesting point here about Varna as a color code, because Varna in fact means the colors. And according to the Vedic text, Varna is like the color codes. So Brahmins have a white coat, then the Kshatriyas red, and when you go all the way down to the Shudras, they are associated with the black color, isn't it? And as we know that the way the black color is despised in this country, and the way there is a kind of discriminations felt by people who are having dark complexion, and a lot of educated Americans, when they have come to India, they have faced this kind of a discrimination on the streets of Delhi, and there is a lot of documentation about it. So we can certainly say that there is an element of of discrimination against a color, and caste certainly has some linkage with this Varna system, because the word Varna, even today in the Indian languages, it means color. So you're basically right on that point. But let's go back to what you just said, put forth there about the Aryan invasion theory, and who were actually propagating it and who were actually supporting it, saying that the particular race is superior to all other human races. And as you rightly pointed out, Hitler was one of the adherents of the theory of Aryan supremacy. In fact, he wanted to have a kind of a global caste system where the Nordic Aryans were at the top, and even the Jews, the black, the gypsies, they will be like
Yes.
in the concentration camps.
Mm-hmm.
Am I audible there? So as recently pointed out, this theory of caste and its understanding vis-a-vis the race, understanding vis-a-vis all the problems of discrimination which are there in the world today, I think this theory of caste offers us a very unique vantage point to understand the the kind of discrimination that has been taking place throughout the world. And I think that's why this kind of the discourse that has been created by both the African American activist and the scheduled caste Dalit activist in India, to really bring together this history of 200-300 years of creating a theory to create a power for a few people. I think this is very interesting point that you have brought forth, Brother Paul.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't it? So I would also request, Amrit Pal ma'am to intervene whenever she can, or Rock brother, whenever you want to jump into the discussion, you are free to do that. Okay?
Yes, sure.
I was going to say, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. You can't, the problem with the theory, the theory that you're talking about, that they're trying to refute about their invasion, is you don't conquer something that you built. How can you, why is there conflict if you built that land? And there's a record, like Paul was talking about, in the Rig Vedas, and also in the Bhagavad Gita, is also recorded about Manu and the caste system and the division of races and stuff like that. This is something that was imposed on indigenous people. So there's no conquest if they already live there. What's the fighting about? So to me, that's problematic. And then you also have a well-documented history of people that were in the caves and hillsides of Europe, in the Caucasus Mountains, that were referred to as uh, uh, what's the name? Paul, we were just talking about it. It was talked about
Mazandaran?
by
Mazandaran?
yeah,
Mazandaran?
the people of Manzanaran, and then also the other name, the biblical name that we were talking about. Golly, I can't think of the name. But anyway, these
Well,
people were locked. What was that, Paul?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was trying to think of the name that they were also referred to in the scriptures. Not, I can't think of the name, but anyway, there's a record of them being locked up in the caves and hillsides of Europe and coming from that place, from a place called Palon Kali, and attacking, like Paul was saying, the root of civilization in the Indus Valley. And so, and then there's scores of history that's, like Paul was also talking about, of them going all over the world doing the same thing, coming into Africa, coming into Egypt, into the Sudan, coming into America, all doing the same thing. So if they're an indigenous people at all of their activities are well documented to be activities where they have come in and tried to conquer the indigenous people that were already there. There's no record of them, not being nomadic. They've always been a nomadic people.
Yeah, I would like to bring this conversation up to date, introducing a very remarkable figure from India, and his name is Jyotiba Phule. He is like a real Mahatma there was in this country. And some of the things, because when the Brahmins in Pune, when they were supporting this Aryan invasion theory, saying that the Brahmins are the Aryans, and they were putting a lot of textual arguments, saying that we came from this place, that place. There was this guy named Tilak who was claiming that the Aryans have come from Arctic Circle. Some people were claiming that they came from Central Asia, and they were putting all these textual resources and references to prove that the Brahmins were the Aryans and the Shudras are the non-Aryans. So there was this remarkable guy, and you will be very surprised to know that once when he wrote his book called Slavery, in Marathi it is called Gulamgiri, he dedicated that book to the people in America in support of the Emancipation Proclamation of Lincoln.
Mahatma Phule.
Mahatma Phule, yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah, Phule, yeah.
And he was called. Yes. May I mention to you very briefly, Rock and I both come from a tradition. We're part of a tradition of a teacher here in this country whose name is W.D. Farad. And he taught what I know, I learned through him relative to the Aryan invasion into India. And he taught in 1930. And he makes reference to the writings of Mahatma Phule. So much of what we know here in this country, one of the reasons that we are so closely tied with the struggle of the Dalit people in India is that we recognize that our struggle here, the African American struggle here, as well as the indigenous struggle here, the Native American struggle here, is bound and tied with the struggle of the people of Asia, India, and other parts of Asia. It's the same history. The history repeats itself over and over again, and so we're in different places in that struggle, but it's the same struggle. In India, it's lasted
Paul, your voice is gone.
Okay. It was buffering. Was my voice buffering?
Yeah. Now it's clear. Yeah.
Okay. I'll pause with that and let you continue.
See, why I wanted to bring in Jyotiba Phule, because we know that he was somebody who was very much internationalist, and he has, as I told you, dedicated his book Slavery to the people of
Yes.
America for the Emancipation Proclamation. When the Brahmins were talking about this Aryan invasion theory and supporting it with their textual references, saying that the Brahmins are the Aryans and all the Shudras and Atishudras are the non-Aryans. So he was the only person from the non-Brahmin background who challenged the Aryan invasion theory, but he did it very interestingly. What he did, he didn't challenge the theory. Using that theory, he tried to say that how the Brahmins, Arya Brahmins, he used the word called Arya Bhat. Bhat means a Brahmin. How the Arya Brahmins have colonialized India before the advent of the British. And then he has gone into all the Brahminical myths and read them from the point of view of India's indigenous people, proving how violent these Arya Brahmins were to subjugate, to destroy the indigenous people with violence. So all those mythologies which are there in the Brahminical, because in India, we didn't have the sense of history. So whatever is there, we have myths, and we have to interpret the myths. We have to really see them in the light of the history and interpret them. So if you look at the Indian mythology, it's full of conflict, full of violence against the, for example, the Nagas. And Babasaheb Ambedkar makes this point very clearly in one of his last speeches in Varanasi, where he says that there was a conflict between the Aryas and the Nagas in this country. And the way Nagas were destroyed, he uses a term scorched earth policy. So whenever the Aryans tried to vanquish the Nagas, they burned their all lands. And the Indian history, the Puranas and the epics are full of references to how the Aryans destroyed the lands and the property of the Nagas.
Yes.
And according to his study of the Indian scriptures and the Brahminical scriptures, he has proved beyond point that the Shudras and the Atishudras were nothing but the Naga people.
Yes.
And interesting, he claims that even the Buddha was supported by the Nagas, and he gives evidences that after the Buddha's enlightenment, he was protected by Muchlinga Naga. If you say the famous image of the Buddha who is protected by the Naga, Muchlinga Naga, and he goes into that. So I think we have to when we look at this Aryan invasion theory, and now there are studies like Tony Joseph's study of a book called Early Indians, where he says that there was a continuous migration to India, and the Harappa civilization is very close to what is called the Dravida civilization. On the genetical research, he has found it out with certain references of the genetical studies that the Harappan civilization matches with the present population of the South India. So they were pushed from the northwestern part of India to the South India. Okay, so he talks about 3-4 waves of migration, and he definitely says that there was an Aryan migration to Indus Valley civilization.
Yeah.
So this is well known. It's a well-known fact that the Nagas, Naga means what? It means
Mangesh, the
serpent.
signal is very
that
weak
correct?
here.
Paul, brother,
Are you able to hear me?
put a microphone near your mouth, please?
Is this better?
Yeah, this is better.
Is it better?
Yes, this is
Okay.
better, sir. Yes.
Oh, okay. Naga means means serpent. Naga means serpent. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Is that correct? Okay.
Yeah.
And that is a symbol of the indigenous people worldwide. So in in this country or in this hemisphere, the feathered serpent is called Quetzalcoatl. In China, the other part of Asia, the dragon is a feathered serpent. In Egypt, Africa, the symbol is a serpent with feathers, wings. So Nagas are the indigenous people worldwide. What we call the Asiatic black man, which is the indigenous people worldwide. They've split us up into different groups and segments and said, you live in India, therefore you belong to this, you're this, and these people here are something entirely different. We accept that there's a struggle, a indigenous struggle worldwide. And what's happening in this country is happening in countries all over the world. The rejection of the oppression of a system that was set up, that it was set up is very similar to the caste system, and the caste system is part and parcel of it, except sometimes it's not called caste. Caste is just a Portuguese word that means purity. It's the Brahman caste theory. The Brahmins have a caste theory. They have a theory that there's such thing as caste. Of purity based on birth, on somebody's lineage, that's going to determine whether that person is superior or inferior. That's a Brahmin caste theory. Now, if people want to talk about the Aryan invasion theory, first we have to prove, I'd like to see them prove the Brahmin caste theory. Are you aware of anything proving that there's such a thing that shows that all the people belonging to this particular caste are less human or lower, and the other people are superior because they were born to parents that also belong to a so-called caste? It's a Brahmin caste theory in order to keep the Brahmins in power. It's a trick. We call it tricknology. In our school, we call it tricknology. It's tricknology. It's a theory, the Brahmin caste theory. And we are the Nagas. The indigenous people are the Nagas. The Aryans are not the Nagas. So I just wanted to comment on that phrase Naga as it relates to us worldwide, as it relates to indigenous people worldwide.
Because these so-called Brahminical scriptures are replete with the ideas of the conflict between the Aryans and the Nagas. And Babasaheb Ambedkar has given a lot of those incidences of history as to how they burned the lands of the Nagas, they burned their forests, destroyed their all the possessions, and how they tried to vanquish them. So, the point of conflict that there is a language called Indo-Aryan language, which is sort of equivalent to Greek and equivalent to Latin, and by finding the common structure, try to claim that one community was there, and then it splintered into several groups and went everywhere. And now there are, as I was saying, that the approach to this theory, particularly from the Brahmins, now gone sea change. The approach has changed. When the British were ruling India, the Brahmins were so much glorifying this theory all the time, claiming, just like Gandhi was claiming Africa, that his fellow Aryans, and to the blacks he was saying Kafirs, and he was saying that they are 1 degree away from the animals. That was the Gandhi for the so-called our black brothers and sisters in Africa. Now it's well documented. As I was saying, that Dr. Odadel Cambon has really brought these 77 points when he was trying to pull that statue of Gandhi in the University of Ghana, and he successfully did that. So what I'm trying to get it as we are moving forward with this is that now in India today there are a lot of school of thoughts which are claiming that this nation belongs to the Shudras and Ati Shudras. Okay, particularly the non-Aryans and the Nagas. Because Babasaheb Ambedkar also said that the Brahmins liked this theory very much because they believed in the two nation theory, that one nation for them, which is aligned with the ruling Britishers, and another nation for the Dasa, Shudras, and Ati Shudras here. And as we see in India today, it is still the case that we call it India and Bharat. So India belongs to a few handful of people who are controlling all the levers of power in this country, and there is a vast expanse of people who have no access to state or who has no access to resources, and that's a huge multitude of people. So even that dichotomy we are seeing in this country today, the concept of two nation theory that was in the minds of the Brahmins when they were trying to lick the boots of their colonial masters, saying that we are the same brothers and sisters. I was very surprised to see that William John's statue, which is in Britain, is holding the Manusmriti. Okay, now Manusmriti is a book that really codifies with the punishment the kind of the caste structure that we are talking today, isn't it? It's like the same like the unwritten law of Jim Crow in the south of United States. So this discussion is very important, when we look at whether the theory is true or false, but what has been the approaches of the different communities to the theory and how they used it to further their political agendas in India, and of the colonialization of the Native Americans, and then eventually how our black brothers and sisters were brought from the Africa, and how they were exploited to in United States. So brother Rock, brother Paul, any comments on this?
Well, yeah, I wanted to clarify something I was trying to say earlier about Gog and Magog that was talked about in the Bible. There was a man named Ghulam Ahmad that actually taught. He was probably one of the first people to really talk about the white people that were in the Caucasus Mountains that were, according to the Quran, were referred to the Dajjal or the Jinn. And he said that they were the enemies of the righteous. And he taught that they were exiled and locked up in the caves and hillsides of Europe, and that their coming out would be the end of civilization as we know it. So I just wanted to clarify what I was trying to say earlier. But in reference to what you were just saying about our struggle, the contrast of our struggles here in America and our brothers and sisters out there in India is almost identical, with the exception that you guys have been under that oppression for a lot longer, and in some cases a lot worse. I saw something today where it was talking about the Dalits having to wear a cup around their neck or a broom around their waist to sweep away their footsteps, and to the cup to catch their spit, and and then the whole thing about untouchability and the shadow of a Dalit being so filthy that a Brahmin would either beat you and kill you, or and then go take a bath, because of the being polluted by your shadow. That to me is horrific. Some of the struggles that you have been through in India, our brothers and sisters in India have been through. And but it's something we can relate to, because as you know, being slaves here in America, we weren't treated kindly as well. And so I think that the commonality of our struggles is something that I'm glad to see that we're finally, uniting and having a discussion to try to identify with these different commonalities and unite. I think it's overdue. So I'm honored to be here, and I'm willing to do whatever I have to do to make my contributions to the struggle. So I thank you for having me.
Welcome. We are not yet finished because Amrit here has been studying the Manusmriti for a long time, and she is also working on the women's movement. So she will be throwing some light on how Manu has degraded the women, because Manu is also part of of that discourse which was pushed in India, as Brother Paul was saying. Some people are higher and some people are lower, and particularly women of all categories are like slaves, and they are to be treated like the slaves with the injunction from the religion. So, Amrit.
Yes, Mangesh, I can quote a few translations. Um, what Manu, he thinks or he says about women. Uh, there are some, like he says that any woman, especially a wife who disrespects her husband, who is addicted to some, any kind of evil passion, like whether he's going to red light areas or he's alcoholic or he's diseased, he has the right to desert that woman for 3 months, even if that woman questions, that her husband. And he also says that it is in nature of women to seduce men in this world. And for this reason alone, the men, they should never guide, never leave their women, unguarded in the households. And also that women, true to their class character, they're capable of leading men astray, even the wise men in this world. And he also says that wise people, especially men, should avoid sitting alone with one's mother, daughter, or sister. Since the carnal desires of a man, they're always strong, it can lead to temptation. Then he also says that one should not marry a woman who has, reddish hair, some redundant body parts like 6 fingers, or who is often sick, or, without hair, or having excessive hair on the body. And men should also not marry women whose names they are similar to some trees, rivers, or objects, or from a low caste, women who are belonging to low caste. And also wise men should not marry women who do not have a brother, or whose parents are not socially known. They should not marry the women who are free. They should marry women only who are free from any kind of bodily defects, who are having beautiful names, and they are very beautiful. They have a grace or gait like an elephant. They have moderate hair on their head and body. They've got soft limbs, and they've got small teeth. There are many, these rules that Manu has set for women. One important, I think, that relates to the caste system is that Brahman men, they can marry women from, the Brahman, Kshatriya, and Vaishya, this fold. But they are not supposed to marry Shudra women. But they can abuse Shudra women sexually whenever they want, whenever they desire. But they are not supposed to marry them. And he also allows intercaste marriages among Brahmins, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas, but never to marry a Shudra. The high caste man is never to marry a Shudra woman. And if they marry, a woman from a low caste, they will be responsible for the degradation of their whole family. And they will lose, their, what do you call, the Brahman status, the superior status in the society. And children who are born to such lesions, they will not be adopted, they'll not be teach in any of the schools, and they adopt all the demerits of Shudra caste. Few more translations I would like to quote, that Manu says that food offered and also which is served to Brahmanas after certain rituals, like Sharad ritual, they should not be seen by a Chandal, a pig, a cock, a dog, and a menstruating woman. For Manu, a single unmarried menstruating woman, she is a great threat to the social steadiness that he envisaged in his book, The Laws of Manu or Manusmriti. And there's another very degrading this quote for women, where Manu says that a Brahmin, in order to preserve his energy and intellect, must not look at women who applies collyrium to her eyes, that's kajal in the eyes, one who is massaging her nude body, or one who is delivering a child. One should not accept, by one I mean the Brahmins or the upper caste, they should not accept meals from a woman who has extramarital relations, not from a family exclusively dominated or managed by women. or any family where 10 days of impurity because of death it has not passed. A female child, a young woman, and even an old woman, she's not supposed to work independently in the house. They all have to be guided by a man, whether their father or their sons or husbands. Then, in case a woman, she enjoys sex with a man from a higher caste, any woman, she could be a low caste woman or a high caste woman. If she enjoys sex, having sex with a man from higher caste, the act is not punishable. But on the contrary, if a woman enjoys sex with a low caste man, then she is liable to punishment, and she must be kept in isolation. Then he says, in case a man from low caste enjoys sex with a woman from a higher caste, he must be awarded with death sentence. But if a person from a low caste, certainly, if he satisfies his carnal desire with a woman of his own caste, then he should be asked to pay compensation to the woman's faith. Then another degrading this code by Manu. In case a woman tears her membrane, hymen, that covers the vagina, she shall insteadily have her head shaved off, or 2 fingers cut off and made to ride a donkey. Then next he says that husband, after the conception of a wife, he becomes the embryo himself and is born again in form of her.
Right.
Then while performing certain Vedic mantras, Vedic mantras, they're not to be recited by women, because according to Manu, women are lacking in strength and knowledge of the Vedic text, and women, they are impure and they represent falsehood. And on failure to produce offspring with her husband, she may obtain offspring by cohabitation with her brother-in-law. I mean, she's forced to cohabit with her brother-in-law. And if a brother-in-law is not available, or if her husband doesn't have a brother, then any male relative from her in-law side must be allowed to cohabit with her to produce a male offspring.
As you can see from Ruth's analysis of Manusmriti, that how this
Let me quote a few more,
form
Mangesh.
of operation was brought. Please go on.
I'm not able to hear you. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Am I audible? Okay, then another one
Yes.
is that in accordance with the established law of Manu, the sister-in-law that we call Bhabi here, she must be, clad in white garments, and she's made to cohabit with her brother-in-law or devar until she conceives. Then a barren wife, she may be superseded in 8th year. A woman whose children die, all her children, they die, she may be superseded in the 10th year of marriage. And she who bears only daughters, she may be superseded in the 11th year. And the one who's quarrelsome, she may be superseded without delay by the male, by the husband. Then, in case of any problem in performing the religious rituals, the males between the age of 24 to 30 years, they're allowed to marry females, rather a girl, between the age of 8 to 12. In case a Brahmin marries a Shudra woman, then their son will be called Parshav. Parshav is the another name for Shudra, because his social existence is like that of a dead body. Yes, thank you.
I think that shows how the operation was institutionalized, and even given the injunction and the sanction of the religion. And whatever Amritpal just quoted, they were not just written in the text, but also they were operationalized through the punitive measures. So as we began our conversation today, we'll go on for another 10 minutes, brothers and sisters. We began with Oradell's campaign to remove Gandhi from the University of Ghana, and he has described Gandhi as pro-Indo-Aryan, anti-black. And in the same paper that Brother Kumban has written, he has called the Dalits in India as the black untouchable brothers and sisters in India. So why I'm making this point again and again, because we have to take a view of a history and see how we can apply today to build that kind of a solidarity against something which is so India in terms of the oppression of the Dalits, the women, and the Adivasis, and what is happening with the black people all over the world is so inhuman that we have to not only challenge the prejudices but also the theories that are brought in the service of this oppression. And this complex of superiority, that the white are superior by the virtue of their pigment, or the claim of the Arya Brahmins here, saying that we belong to a superior culture, and we had this affinity with the whites, saying like the people like Gandhi used to call the Western Aryans, and we are the Eastern Aryans. I think we have to break this particular construction and the notions which sort of create the oppressive structures. Interestingly, when we came to Babasaheb Ambedkar, he has sort of denied the Aryan race theory. He said it's an absurd that how it can be pursued by anybody, and he called Brahmins almost foolish to pursue this Aryan race theory, saying that the Aryan racial theory receives support from Brahmin as they believe in two nations theory, as I said before, that they don't claim that they belong to this country. Now, over the period of time, these ideas are so concretized that there is, in the Indian history, by the intellectuals and leaders like Jyotiba Phule, they changed it to what is called the Brahmo Samaj. And when the India was at the verge of the freedom, when there was 1990, the Brahmins came up with this new identity called the Hindu, and that is where is the genesis of Hindu Mahasabha, RSS, and all those forms of nationalism that we see today. They are backed by this kind of a supremacy of the Aryan race. Even today, that slips into the discourse, but the as Mahatma Jyotiba Phule used to say, as Babasaheb Ambedkar has said, that this Hindu word is the construction of the Brahmins in terms of a nation, with a feeling of nationalism, and also to alienate who are not native to India, for the native religions to India, like Christianity and Islam. And therefore, when we look at the 30s and indigenous people of India, while their leaders, the ideologues of the Hindutva ideology, they themselves declared that they came from outside. They came from Arctic Circle. They came from the Middle East. They came from Iran, so on and so forth. So now, when we are competing against this kind of a discourses which has implications politically, which has implications sociology, which has implications on operation, how that discourse of colonialization taking place in the Black America, that I would like to ask, because with the rise of Trump, he's talking about white supremacy, and then the rise of what is called anti-fascist, Antifa, and whatever these all these movements which are taking place, particularly in America, and in support of white supremacy. How do you see all the discourse of colonialization in Black America, Brother Paul?
Ask it again. There was a little breakup in the audio. Can you restate that question?
Yeah. You see this theory of colonialization, the theory of a foreign group coming to the indigenous land and enslaving them, and now there is a rise of white supremacism in United States, with particularly this Trump coming to power, and a lot of things are happening. How does the Black America sees the colonialization, the way the Native Americans were colonialized, the way the blacks were colonialized, the way their minds were colonialized, the way their humanity was broken through the laws of Jim Crow? How do they look at this?
Yeah, we call it Yakub's tricks. When the doctor was talking about Manu Manusmriti, we were taught about Manusmriti as the laws of Yakub, of the breaking of the subjugating of the darker, in this case the lower caste, so-called lower caste, and the elevation of the so-called higher caste. We call that Yakub's trichology, Yakub's laws. So it's not something foreign to us. It's just in a different language. So we have the same teachings, the same ideas. We just have them in different language. We speak in different languages. We speak different dialects. The white supremacy, the concept of white supremacy is just basically Brahmanism. Brahmanism is based on a group, on a caste that is higher or supreme to the other castes, varnas below it. And when we look through the annals of time, history, world history, wherever we find a plurality of colors, we will always find historically meaning probably over the past 4,000 years, we consistently find the darker on the bottom, or the indigenous on the bottom of the state system or the hierarchical system, and the paler or whiter on the top of the hierarchical system. And that's what happens here. It was colonialists who founded this country.
Yes, you are audible.
Am I still present? Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're present. You're present. Yeah. If you can hold the mic near your mouth.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Yeah, it's the same. Colonial. There was 13 colonies founded in 1776. So it was colonialism that spread across this country and colonized this country, the Americans, the Americas. It was the British who did it too, the same way that the British moved into India and wanted access to the wealth that the people had produced and basically enslaved the people. Shudra is basically the slave caste. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So blacks in this country were and to some extent still are looked upon as the caste. It's important that the people in this country, America, understand that the forced out or thrown out of the caste system. Is that correct?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Are you able to hear me?
Yeah. Can you?
Okay. And so when we talk about the caste system, are you able to hear me okay, Mangesh?
Yeah. I think there is some problem with Brother Paul's connection. Brother Rock, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Right. I think they both have some connection problem. Yeah, brother, welcome back.
He's back.
Okay. So it broke up. I want to give Brother Rock a chance to get some of this.
Yeah.
Brother Rock.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, the parallels are very apparent in regards to how the caste system translated all throughout their culture. I mean, even when you look at the culture in Europe with the indentured servants and the serfs and all the different divisions of society that they even had amongst themselves, they translated the caste system all throughout their culture. So it wasn't just to us that they enslaved themselves. You know, the kings, you have the priests, the kings, the indentured servant, the serfs, and, you know, the warrior, I should say, the knight, and then you have the indentured servant or the serfs. So they always had that system within their culture, and we just happen to get get it here in America just as they brought it in India. But it's important to note that racism began in India, because that's the first, that encounter with those the Aryan race, that was the first time in history that that social system of caste based on color was actually introduced to the world. And ever since then, they've been spreading it all over or around the world. So what we've been experiencing in America, in fact, when the sister was reading the Laws of Manu, it reminded me of the Willie Lynch letter. I don't know if you're familiar with the Willie Lynch letter, but some of the brutality as far as the dehumanization of the person, because when she was reading the long list of different laws that were imposed, it was very upsetting to hear the level of dehumanization that this person or people imposed on you all. And also that, of course, what we've experienced here. But I just happened to be reading the Willie Lynch letter, and it just made me see some correlation as far as the dehumanization process that was taken against dark-skinned people. And it's tragic. You know, it's very tragic that we have suffered this, but I think it's time. What we're doing is definitely on time. So I appreciate this conversation.
Brother Paul,
We're tearing down statues of Gandhi over here. Did you know that, Mangesh?
Yeah.
There was this, I shouldn't say we, I was involved, but I wasn't there, except I think it was at the University of Santa Cruz, University of California at Santa Cruz. I believe that's the campus. They ripped down the Gandhi statue there. Gandhi was a big opponent of Dr. Ambedkar. He was a big opponent of Dr. Ambedkar.
Yeah.
And didn't want untouchability written out of the Constitution. So if Gandhi, now I'm not, statues as far as I'm concerned are just rocks and stones. The idea and the concept lives inside the hearts and minds of people. And Gandhi was rotten to the core. And so it's very important that people recognize that Gandhi is responsible for the death and suffering of.
Paul, brother, you are again gone.
Yeah, I think Gandhi, didn't he refer to the Dalits as the children of God, but he didn't mean it in a good way. He meant it as being the children of the Brahmins, I believe.
Yeah, he was like saying boy. It's like saying
Right.
Boy.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a phrase in America?
In this country? Yes. See, it's the same thing. They will call someone boy, and that's not like meaning that you're a nice person. It means that you're less. And so when Gandhi starts calling people Harijan, or I believe that's the word in his language, the children of God, he's basically calling them boy. Yeah. And Gandhi is responsible for the death and suffering of millions of people. That's something that is written out of the history that most people here do not recognize. They look upon Gandhi because of propaganda of the Brahman caste theorists. They've pushed Gandhi as some type of a saint. But Gandhi was a very, I'll just say he was directly responsible for the death and suffering of millions of people.
Yeah. Brother Paul and Rock, I think we have finished our first lap of our conversation. We are going to have many more, and 4 in the coming 4 weeks, and we will look into a lot of themes. And today was a discussion on the very important aspect is, and in the next rounds we will be looking at more issues as to how we are going to build the solidarity, what is the Buddhist connection between the communities, and so on and so forth. So I think we are looking out for a very important and exciting 4 weeks ahead. And if you have anything to say before we leave, please, the stage is yours, and you can comment before we leave. And then I would request Amritpal to conclude the session today. Amritpal, can you hear us now?
She has to mute herself.
She has to unmute. You have to unmute your mic. Yeah.
Yes. Am I audible now?
Yeah, you're audible. You're audible. Before you conclude, I'm requesting Brother Paul and Rock to any comments for the day today.
Yes, sure.
Well,
Do we have questions from the listeners?
I think we
yes,
will take the
Mangesh,
questions.
do we have any questions from our listeners?
Not today. We will take the questions in the future discussions.
Okay.
I'd like to say I'm always open and eager to taking questions from the audience. So, and this is our first discussion in this particular series. So, as it goes on, we're going to iron out some of the wrinkles that are showing in this discussion in terms of the audio and the visuals. I just want to say peace and Jabim, victory to Ambedkar. And I want to express unity on behalf of myself and my people in this country with the struggle of indigenous people worldwide, including the Dalit people of India.
Brother Rock?
Yes, this is a historic moment that we're taking part in, and I'm honored to be here. I think these dialogues are a long time coming. I believe they're the fulfillment of a vision that from our teacher here in America, W.D. Farad, that these dialogues took place, and that we unite with our brothers and sisters in Asia, as particularly in India, and that we also reclaim the science that was taught by the Buddha to heal ourselves, because as we know, Buddhism was a reaction to the Hindu caste system. The Buddha was a revolutionary that was teaching us a way out of the caste system, mentally, emotionally, physically. And I'm grateful that you're starting these dialogues so that we can, get back to where we belong in our original pristine state, that Black people rise to the top. And I think this is our moment. And I'm just grateful to be a part of these discussions.
Amritpal, handing over to you to conclude the session today.
Yes, I want to say something. I think it's very important in today's time that Blacks and Dalits, they must collaborate and they must come together to form one movement, to fight against these unjust systems. It is very important in today's time now. It will help us, especially the Dalits, to take our problem globally, because the caste system, it is not globally known the way the racial discriminatory system is known. And one reason that I find why our system is not globally known is that it's not easy to identify the discrimination that is, or rather it's not easy, or it's not visible. The discrimination based on caste is not visible, that visible the way the racial discrimination is. It's very easy to, distinguish between the different these shades of your skin color. But when we talk about caste system, one race, people belonging to one race, they are divided into so many castes, and those castes, they are further divided into so many subcastes and subgroups. And unfortunately, there is no unity between these subgroups or the subcastes. And when if you pick one subgroup or one subcaste at one time, you will find that those castes, they are oppressing, the caste, the subcaste or subgroups that are below them in our social hierarchy. But at the same time, they're also getting oppressed by the people who are, above them in the hierarchy. So this system, the whole system of oppression, because of caste, becomes kind of invisible. So if we collaborate, blacks and Dalits, if we collaborate, our problem will get, a more global approach. Mangesh, shall we conclude?
Yes, we conclude, and we will meet the audience next week at 9 o'clock on Friday. So I would just like to put my thank you to both the brothers here and to you, Amritpal, for having this very interesting conversation today.
Yes. So that brings us to the end of today's live series on race and caste. And I take this opportunity to express my gratitude to all the speakers for sharing their valuable thoughts and insights on race and caste. And I also thank all the live listeners who have supported us on our Facebook live page, Ambedkar Karma. And a humble request to you all, please join us in our next session, next week, same day, same time. Let us all unite and rise to make our world, discrimination free. So thank you, Jai Bhim, and good night to all.
Hold on for a bit.